We are here today launching our varsity podcast. Justin Barney and Andrew Sponge Franklin from Channel 4. And if you missed our debut newsletter last week, this is something we are launching kind of to coincide with that newsletter. We're going to give you a little bit of insight and analysis and wrap back and forth with you throughout the season. I've been covering sports in this area for quite some time. 1998 was my first season doing it. And Sponge, how long have you been in the game?
I've been in this game probably for about 10 years, I'd say, 10 plus. Got my start coaching with my main guys at Trinity Christian. I'm a local guy, Duval kid, born and raised here. I played at the old NB Forest, a.k.a. West Side now. So that's transitioned to a new school. But like I say, I've coached at Trinity since I want to say 2009. So I was on that staff for about 10 plus years. We had a pretty good run. Won a couple state titles. I think it's 5. And then I've also been coaching a Pro Impact Sports 7-on-7 travel all-star team with my good friends Gerard Ross and Gus Scott. So, just been in this area, know a lot of the kids, enjoyed coaching, watching the kids, and just looking forward to rapping about some high school football in our city.
Yeah, it's been a good ride. So, Sponge has coached the game, and not just the high school game, but the 7-on tournaments and stuff like that. Seen quite a few decorated athletes, including Mac Jones, named starter of the New England Patriots
QB1, baby.
on
QB1.
Tuesday afternoon. So pretty cool to see that. So we're going to give you a little bit of history. We're going to give you a little bit of insight and what we're coming from. So this is going to be a weekly segment. So bear with us as we get up and running. It's going to be going to make it easier for you to listen to this and download this in the coming weeks. But let's kick things off. We're going to start with last week's games. Last week, week 1 in Florida, Georgia started a couple weeks earlier, but Florida games, and this is in our backyard. And talk a little bit about what you saw last week. To me, one of the games of the week, if not the game of the week, last week with Trinity Christian and Rain. Sponge, you were there for that one. Turned out to be a pretty darn good game.
Yeah, it was actually a good game. Final score was pretty tight, and it ended very close, but Rains couldn't pull it out. Trinity couldn't get much going offensively except the ground game. So, Ross has got his work cut out for him. We got a true freshman quarterback over there who I think is going to be really good, but, definitely got to work the kinks out and get the passing game going. The big deal was when I got over there, Trayon Webb, my man Trey, has got a pulled hamstring, so he was out, so they had to turn to the number 2 guy, Darnell Rogers, who really, really, really played well. The game started out not so good. Cam kind of muffed the opening kickoff, started at the 1, ended up next play throwing a pick 6. Rains took the lead early, 6-0. Trinity had a pretty decent drive on the ensuing drive, fumbled inside the red zone. Rains took it back down, scored, and took a 2-score lead. But Cam Miller with a big 90-yard kickoff return for the touchdown, got him back in with a one scoring possession. But then what happens? Rains gets the ball back. My man KJ Burke, 70-yard bomb. So it was back and forth. Things got a little stale in the later in the second half, but Trinity ground game, kept it controlled. Tight game in the end, but Trinity won 24-18. I think both teams going forward are going to be really good teams in our area. I know both teams have a schedule that's a little tough, but I think they're both going to get through it and be battle tested for the playoffs. And I'm just looking forward to watching, what comes about both of these squads.
People see that score, and Trinity's number 1 in our Super 10, and Rains coming off a down year record-wise last year. But Rains is always tough, no matter when it is, no matter what players are on the team. This is a tough game for Trinity Christian. People expect them to mop the floor just because we have such high expectations for Trinity, but I don't think this was an indictment on Trinity's down or anything like that, as much as it was Rains is probably a lot better than it was last year.
Rains is definitely one of the best teams in the area every time, all year, every season. So they're coming out with Carlton Butler's been good at quarterback. They've got the weapons at receiver in Quincy and KJ. They've got the kid who transferred over from Jackson at running back, Darnell Cummings. They always keep a good stock defense. So that game's always going to be a banger. So it's, just a matter of being an early season game, having to play that's tough. Both teams, don't really get a warm up game. You got to jump right into it, and one team's got to win, one team's got to lose. So, but I feel like both teams are going to be definitely one of the top teams in our area and continuing on to the playoff.
Yeah, I agree. I think Trinity Christian, as they march toward that state championship number 10, I believe, is going to have its challenges. I don't think this week, next week, or even the week after, but I think after that kind of that break in that week 4 to week 5, I think Trinity Christian really that schedule amps up considerably for the Conquerors.
Definitely.
Last week also was our Bold City Showcase that we put on the WWA Mechanical Contractors Inc. Bold City Showcase. That's, I believe, the third installment under that brand of the Bold City brand. And rain, weather, lightning kind of marred that game. But we had three games. Nassau County team in West Nassau lost to Bowles 42-0 on Friday night. Creekside 16-7 over Ribault on Saturday. And a battle at Clay County Oakley 42-21 over Orange Park. Those lopsided matchups, of course. Sponge and I talking about this, but if you had it in a perfect scenario, what would have been your 3 games to put onto that showcase last week?
Definitely. I know I'm a little biased, obviously, with TC, but obviously the best game in the area, in my opinion, was Trinity at Rains. And then I probably would have thrown in the battle at the beach, maybe Sandalwood Fletcher, and even 2 Clay County schools, Clay Fleming. I think those 3 would have been lights out games to have on the schedule, which would have been nice. But it is what it is. You're at the mercy of what happens. So, but those are 3 games that I think were probably the best 3 in our area last week.
Yeah, and with the help of hindsight, we get a chance to go back and remake the schedule. But all the 6 teams that were in it, I'm sure, had an enjoyable experience. Heard from parents and coaches at some of those schools who took part in it and loved the experience and everything. So it's nice to see that brand continuing to grow and include schools from Clay County for the first time in Oakleaf and Orange Park, and another St. Johns County team at Creekside, and also Ribault getting another TV game on Channel 4. They were in the Northwest Classic with rival Rains on the 50th anniversary in 2019 of that series. So the brand continues to grow, and it'd be nice if we could do this on a weekly basis, highlight those local teams.
For sure.
And put that game in the spotlight, or team in the spotlight every week. But that's wishful thinking on my part. Okay, so if you're going to handicap the games here in week 2, Sponge, you and I will both kind of throw our top 4 in the matchup this week. But go ahead and handicap your top 4 in the area this week.
I feel like our number 1 is probably going to be the same. Definitely, I think the Bowles, Lake City, Columbia is probably going to be the top game in the area. Bowles looks really good. Baby McCaffrey, Cade Frew looks like a monster again, as usual. And Columbia, they got dudes all over the field too. So I think that's going to be definitely a good one to watch.
Marcus Peterson against that Bowles secondary is a pretty good, tantalizing matchup. And Cade Frew, we saw what he did last week against West Nassau, ran unbelievably wild behind that big offensive line. Can he get by that Columbia defense with that same efficiency?
Yeah, that'll be the test for sure. And Peterson, actually, 7-on-7 guy. He was a monster in 7-on-7. So he's definitely a matchup nightmare for any DB in the area. But yeah, definitely the challenge will be, can Lake City stop the ground game, force Bowles into, throwing more than what they want to do. Both coaches, I'll be interested to see, this is Demetri Jackson's first year at Lake City. So I think that definitely is the game to watch.
Number 2 on your list.
I'm gonna go, a little bit of a homer pick here. The old Forest Rebels, now Westside Wolverines. They're taking on Ed White. Ed White looks like they're making a step forward. Our guy Christian Ellis, he was a TC guy last year. Played a little bit of everything: running back, corner. Just the Swiss Army knife guy. He's really taken to Ed White's offense and been their main focus in their kickoff classic game, and then last week in that big win over Wakulla. So, my man Dubose over at Westside, he's got some things rolling right now. They had a nice win last week against Jackson. They got a stud receiver who plays 7-on-7 with us, Antoine McCray. He is definitely one to watch in our area. He's one of the top receivers in the state, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with Westside and Ed White.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I saw McCray last year against Bishop Kenny, kind of his coming out game. I believe he had 3 touchdowns in that game, and just a guy, a versatile guy who can score running the ball, he can score on special teams, and score receiving the ball. So, what about your 3 and 4 games?
My 3 and 4 games, I got a battle of the North Side, Reigns and First Coast, and then I think we might have one of the same games too. I want to see what Riverside and Atlantic Coast. Both of those teams won. My guy OJ Smalls got it rolling at the old Lee Generals, Riverside High. So Atlantic Coast had a big win last week over Mandarin. They haven't beat them, and I don't know if they ever have. So those are the other 2 games that I like.
Nice. Okay, I think we agree on a couple of these. I've got number 1, Bulls Columbia. I think that goes without saying, the game of the week. Number 2, I'll switch it up on you. You got the Battle of West Side. I've got the Battle of Riverside and Atlantic Coast. Atlantic Coast, the first win over Mandarin in 6 years last week. So big W for Coach Mike Montemayor, building off that playoff run last year. Atlantic Coast. So that's my number 2 game of this week. Number 3 game this week is an out-of-area team. I don't like to spotlight the out-of-area teams against local teams, but this is hard to overlook. Miami Christopher Columbus Catholic. They've won 17 games in a row, 2019 state champion. They're coming up to face Bartram Trails. That's 2 big ones out of the gate for Bartram. Last week over Rickards, kind of a late notice game. Big, tough game, too. Trinity saw Rickards early in the season. Rickards was a deep playoff team last year. They're coming up to Bartram Trail on Friday night. Number 4, I'm going to switch this one up on you, too. Battle in St. Johns County, Menendez and St. Augustine. That's always a big game. Not really necessarily a rivalry. St. Augustine's won 18 of 19 games in that series, so it has been lopsided. But a couple years ago, Menendez broke that streak with a 62-28 win. Most points I think St. Augustine's given up in its history as a football program. So a pretty big victory there. But new coach at Menendez, Matt Potak, going to try to go 2-0. St. Augustine last week lost its game due to COVID-19, so this will be their season debut. That is always a good one in St. Johns County. So that's our 4 games, each a little bit of variety in our top 4 for me and Sponge, but nonetheless some good games in week 2 in the area. We're going to wrap things up this week with probably one of the weirdest stories that we've seen in quite some time. I don't know if you listeners caught this, but Bishop Sycamore, an online charter school up in Ohio, somehow finagled its way into a game on ESPN against IMG Academy. And the stories surrounding this game, how it came to fruition, just get more interesting by the day. They lost, of course, to IMG. No shame in that. IMG beats everybody 58-0. But since that game, even on the telecast of that game, the announcers knew it was a mismatch. And since that game has evolved, has ended, we've come to find out a lot about Bishop Sycamore. May not even be a real school. May have used players that are beyond the age limit. Their coach has reportedly got an active arrest warrant out for him and lied about players on the team, lied about their credentials, lied about college offers, and they actually even played a game the day before their ESPN game. So, Sponge, I mean, what is going on here?
What's crazy is the whole crazy thing about this, it just gets more bizarre by the day. Did you know that IMG actually played them last year?
Yeah, and they won by 50. Yeah. How does this game get made?
So IMG, they're getting off kind of scot-free in this, hey, it's ESPN. They didn't do their research. Like, back-to-back years, IMG played this team and won by 50+. The researchers at ESPN, guys, you failed big time on this. How do you not just go to Max Preps, get a roster, search for who they say their alleged 4 and 5-star guys are? That's just terrible research by ESPN, big time fail. IMG, obviously, they have a tough time scheduling games, but, they should know better to be like, yeah, let's play this team on ESPN.
Yeah, just a bad decision. ESPN uses a kind of a marketing arm, Paragon Marketing, which has actually put together some games for our area teams in the past. I believe Tim Tebow's niece team had a Paragon affiliation back in 04, 05. So, I mean, it's a reputable group.
Yeah, I want to say we played on ESPN multiple times, and I feel like that is the same group we went to Buford, and then IMG came to Trinity. And I feel like Paragon was the company that basically was in charge.
Yeah, it's a reputable group. I mean, the Paragon name goes back quite a few years, and they're responsible for kind of organizing a lot of these high school matchups. And you would think that you would have gone to your best friend Google and said, hey, or hey Siri, or somebody asked me, tell me about what's going on with this Bishop Sycamore team. So this story just continues to get weirder and wilder by the day. I don't know in today's.
What's crazy too is I want to say if you look at the rest of their schedule, they're supposed to play like St. Francis,
a murderer's row of teams,
Duncanville out of Texas, and DeMatha out of Maryland. So it's like, how are these teams like the big dog? Again, those teams I know have a hard time scheduling opponents, but like, come on, man! Like now that this is out, like this team they should be dropped, especially if they're playing guys who are like 2 and 3 years graduated. It's just like, man, this is just
it's so unbelievable.
And to literally play that game 2 days later, they played a Friday night game and got beat like 38-0.
And then turn around and played this week, the weekend out. I mean, it's unbelievable how this team coaxed its way into an ESPN game by using smoke and mirrors and deception to do it. But if you're I'm not saying condone this or anything, but if you're the Bishop Sycamore staff, this is great for them. The exposure, you're getting your team on TV. Definitely. And, so they, for all their purposes, wanted to have their moment in the sun. They got their moment in the sun, but at what expense, at what cost? And I think it's going to come back and bite Paragon in the tail and really going to shine a light on how shady of a program. We've seen some shady programs here over the years. Arlington Country Day jumps out to me big time in stuff that they've done, but that school's no longer around, but this is a different level of shadiness, and certainly one that's going to continue to play out over the next things. But Sponge and I were laughing yesterday about some of the stories and the memes and everything that have come out about this this team, and I think it's going to be the gift that keeps on giving throughout the week.
For sure.
So thanks for listening today in our first edition of the Varsity Podcast. Sponge and I will be coming to you each week on a different variety of channels, but today it's on YouTube. You can subscribe to our newsletter on newsforjacks.com/newsletters, and Sponge and I will be back here same time next week. Thanks for joining us.